It's Christmas time. There's no need to be afraid unless you're Cambridge United, Bristol Rovers, or Blackpool, because Wrexham are coming for you, and we're on a turkey roll. Letting light in light and banishing shade with me this week will be Bill Long and Chay Long, Wrexham's cheeky boys, and Andy Parkinson, the only person who got the joke I made before we started recording. But to be fair, it was about somebody who was in our class in school, and Bill and Chay weren't born then. And in this world of wonder, we can share, spread a smile of joy by talking about three wins, as well as catching up with Dan Bachmann. So put your arms around our ball. It's final whistle weekly time. I made that up off the top of my head. I didn't
That
sit in the
wasn't bad
car
for
for
you.
ages recording voice memos while having my tyre fixed this afternoon. How are we,
How
chap?
did you burst your tyre?
I don't know. Oh, there was a nail in it. So, which would have been a simple repair had I not driven on it for a while without realizing. So I knackered my own tire, and so they're going to put a new one on it tomorrow.
Oh, nightmare.
Happy days though. It's a tale I'll be telling the grandkids though. I can promise you that.
I think it should be a segment on this podcast.
You think so? Tire tales.
Mm.
How are you all, chaps? Did you survive Storm Dara?
We did.
Yeah, just about. I made the stupid mistake on the Saturday of taking the dog for a walk, and there was some very scary looking trees blowing on the way to Brickfield Park, and I'm just kind of glad I survived all that. But yeah, other than that, absolutely fine. Yeah.
Yeah, in work, I've had to deal with about three or four broken windows, storm pipes going off the building. Yeah, there's been some real damage that it's caused. I've never seen weather like that in Wrexham well, I don't think ever. So yeah, how how was it in Burton?
Oh, it was windy. Well, it wasn't, but the journeys were much worse than Burton. I mean, it was windy for a football match, but it wasn't crazy windy, if you will.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, we seemed to play well in the wind, and women also did really well at Barry on Sunday too. So maybe we should have more gusty weather. Actually, here it didn't affect us at all, except for the hole in the roof of my car that trampoline made. Apart from that, I'm fine. I've mentioned this before in other places, so I'll only very quickly say it was an interesting journey, especially on the way back when Geraint Parry was driving me. Thank God he was driving, not me. We drove under a tree, which was a big tree that was across the road, but there was just enough clearance, so we drove underneath it. And then when the River Dee broke its banks at Bangor on Dee, we tried to drive through the exciting new river that had been formed. So it sounds like a boy band, doesn't it? And we got to the point where the water had nearly reached the level of the windows, and Geraint thought maybe we should back out of this. The bloke in front of us kept going, incredibly, and went through.
Oh,
Whether his car started in the morning, totally different matter, you know. Last I saw of him, he was driving off into distance, and there was a string of five ducklings going after him. Untrue
wow.
story. Right. Let's stop this overly long. I never like podcasts of over long chats at the start, and here we are, 4 hours into the show. It's like a speech by Fidel Castro, isn't it? Um, so let's stop this and crack on with the actual hard work of Final Whistle Weekly. Not that it's hard work, it's great fun. I'm so sorry. Well, we won 1-0 at Burton, and then we won 1-0 against Crewe. In fact, here's my fab fact I worked out today. I'm not saying I'm sad, but if we win 1-0 against Cambridge, we will equal the club record because once in the past we've won five 1-0s in a row. So, core blimey. Um, our defence looks good, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah. Well, it always helps if you can defend.
It certainly does. Doesn't matter who's in goal behind them. We're not conceding 7 home clean sheets in a row, 5 home clean sheets in all games. That's mad, isn't it?
And,
It's bordering on unheard of, isn't it? Literally, because you're talking about records being broken. So, yeah, I there's a lot of talk around the state of the striking situation, and I'm sure it's something that we might come on to, but it doesn't matter if you don't concede, does it, Chay?
the thing that impressed me the most, we have seemed to be chopping and changing throughout the season as well. We've had different partnerships, and you know we haven't had every game clean sheets, but we've been so rock solid defensively, and the back three has changed several times. And if one of them get injured, God forbid, we've got Tom O'Connor, even Will Boyle, people like that who can come in, slot in, and do a great job. I think defensively, if we are to go up this season, we've got a lot to thank for our defence and all 3 of our goalkeepers.
3? How many have we got? I'm losing count now. I mean, no one expected Mark Howard to be making a comeback this season. Well, certainly nobody expected Bradley Foster to be making an appearance for us. But
Yeah.
to be fair, he was great in the what's it called now? The Virtue Trophy match. I mean, fair play to him.
I mean, can we touch on Mark Howard as well, just for a second? I think his age, and how experienced he is, he's the perfect third goalkeeper, and he's come in for these last 2 games, and he's been excellent. A really steady pair of hands, and you've got to give him a lot of respect. He probably wasn't even expecting to make a league appearance this season. He's come in, he's been really, really solid. Billy's he's been a real credit, a really good servant to the club, hasn't he?
Yeah, I don't think you can fault him at all. He was very, very arguably unlucky to be replaced by Ben Foster in the National League, because let's give him his due. He played the vast majority of that season and was a huge part of the reason why we went up. He was maybe slightly unfair not to get a chance when Ben Foster decided to retire. Like a proper chance now, not just the couple of games that he played before Arthur came in. And he's coming in aged 38, 2 leagues higher than where we'd signed him for, and is doing a job, isn't he, Andy?
You can't really fault him at all. It's incredible what he's doing. And fair play as well. He's taking his opportunity because, to be fair, I don't know how many games he really thought he'd be getting when he signed on for this season. But yeah, he must be looking at a coaching role or where his career goes next. But yeah, fair play. He's taking his chances, and he made some good stops from in the home game.
Yeah.
So yeah, fair play to him.
And
That what?
sorry,
Sorry, that one save against who was it we played on the Tuesday? Lincoln.
Barnsley.
Barnsley, sorry, yeah, that one save he made against Barnsley stopped us from losing, didn't it? So, or conceding at that point in the game, and then probably going on to lose. The way that game was playing out was whoever scored first was probably going to win. So, already earning points because of him. So fair dues, and to play in the conditions, Mark. I mean, you were there, obviously. Was difficult for any keeper, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, actually. You're quite right. I mean, the save he made against Barnsley was what was excellent. Really strong hand because he's starting to go down. He's done brilliantly to get his top hand up and get that sort of contact. But then you had the Burton game. Oh, you wouldn't want to be a keeper in those conditions. It was horrible. And he was very composed. I think, to be fair, we were in control of that game for a lot of it. And Burton didn't have a big striker and weren't trying to launch it in the box, which I think was quite handy for us. But having said that, when there were long balls in the box, the obvious one I can think of was quite late on when we won up in the second half and they had a free kick. They put it into the goal mouth and he punched it away really well. He actually started a good counter attack with his punch. But it was just that experience and level headedness. He's just thinking, okay, this is swirling around. This is going to be awkward. I don't think he ever for a moment entertained the thought of catching it. It was too high risk but he can make those decisions. So he punches well, and gets rid of it. He's good on the floor as well. His kicking into the wind was superb. He was trying to hit them flat, and they were travelling, which Crocombe, their goalkeeper, wasn't able to do when we switched around. He's just a great professional, isn't he, Howard? He deserves all the credit he's getting.
Interesting that you mentioned Crocombe as well, because I was going to come on to that for the
Mm.
corners. Um, he went to catch it a couple of times and clearly
Yeah.
missed, and surely going for the punch. Yeah, he didn't. There were a couple of signals first. I'm going to try this once, didn't work. I might try it again, see what happens.
Yeah.
Um, I just, he surely should have responded to that, so it didn't happen again the second time around.
Yeah.
From Burton's point of view, the goal was a poor one to give away. Um, I also have a man on the back post, and they didn't as well. So
Well,
yeah, but
about 5 minutes before the goal, Lee dropped a corner onto the roof of the net, didn't he? That you're alluding
yeah,
to. And yeah, at
mm,
the time, I didn't think that much of it. But looking back at it, I'm not convinced Crocombe is actually getting to cover that. He jumps and grabs his bar to show I'm in control. I know it's going over.
mm,
But I think if it had, if it had been a foot to the right from Elliot Lee's point of view, I think Crocombe would have had to make a save like he made from Tom O'Connor's free kick to stop that from going in. I must say as well, I've said this a few times. I apologise if people heard me say it elsewhere, but afterwards, understandably, their manager and Godfrey Malif, the fullback, were both saying we're unlucky to lose to a fluky goal. But I thought Andy Morale had a very good point, which he made when it was 0-0, which was that it's incredibly windy. It's horrible for goalkeepers. So why are Burton taking away swingers on all their corners? We were
mm.
we were playing in swingers, and every single one except the very first one, which Crocombe caught because it was too close to him, caused a problem. Um, and then theirs were away swingers, and they weren't causing problems. They took the first in swinger they took was in added time at the end of the match, and it went across the face of goal, and it was dangerous. And Andy Morale, I think, has got a strong point saying it's not bad luck when that decides a game. It's one side playing the percentages and understanding the conditions, and the other side completely failing to play the percentages and not taking advantage of the swirling wind. Because, like I said, Howard didn't have much to take in the air.
I think
Obviously Burton practiced all week, and then you get to conditions like that. You've
Yeah.
got to be able to say, "Well, that was the plan. Now let's do something else."
Yeah.
And I don't think Burton played the conditions at all.
I think that's right. I think they had a plan. They stuck to their original plan. I think in a lot of circumstances, I would agree with that. But when the wind's that strong, I think you've got to have a little think about it. You know what I mean?
it's like the thing is why I really, really enjoy watching this Wrexham side is how versatile we are. We can nick away wins like at Rotherham and Burton, play in terrible conditions and win. We can also play like we did against Reading, scoring some beautiful full team goals and passing from the start from the our half. It was such a versatile side, and you've got to give Parky a lot of credit. At times, we don't play the most attractive football. Well, what's perceived as attractive football. We play direct sometimes, but you've got to give Parky and the boys a lot of credit because we know how to win and we play very effective football. We're a nightmare at this moment in time to deal with.
Yeah.
Bill, let's say at the moment, look at Southampton for example. Who are currently playing in a way that's just not working, but they keep on trying to stick to this identity. Look at Wrexham. We can change it up. We can win all sorts of different ways. You've got to give Parkinson a lot of credit, haven't you, Bill, in that regard.
Oh, 100%. And I think the tactical. Oh, look, we've done this to death on Final Whistle Weekly. We are Phil Parkinson's fan club, aren't we? I don't think it's any secret that we all love Parky, and he's immune from criticism in my eyes for the vast majority. He could nick an ice cream off a little kid, and he'd still be a top bloke in my opinion. But
Yeah, that little
he's
kid could grow up to be Hitler. So I'm
that's
backing
true.
Parkinson on that.
Yeah, so am I. But I think even within a game, so that first game that we played 5-4-1 or however you sort of label it these days, but um, there was flexibility within the game. So we were playing with a diamond midfield, and then we score, and it switches to like almost like a box midfield straight after, where it's, it was like Lee and Dobson was sort of pushing on either side of the wings, and Rathbone and Lee were rotating, and it wasn't just that Lee decided, oh, I'm going to drift to the left now. Parkinson gave Dobson instructions, and the shape changed not long after. And I just think it's look, you expect it from opposition fans because I don't know how. I don't know. Let's take. I don't know how Burton play it week in week out, so I don't know how tactically flexible their manager is. So I'm not going to comment about their manager. And of course, you're going to say you get Jurassic Parky and all that sort of stuff that you hear sometimes. But anybody who watches us week in week out, especially at the ground, shouldn't be saying he's tactically inflexible because it's just not true.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think people who say that are exposing themselves as not doing much because we're very flexible, and I think it's just like Chay said. I mean, I don't see us when people talk about us being long ball or ugly at all. I genuinely don't see. Have they seen Elliot Lee playing? I just think that we can mix it up. We can go direct if we want to. The only times I think we go a bit too direct is when we're not playing well. But that's not the plan at all. We pen teams in their own half when we play at home or when we're playing well away from home. But like you say, it's that ability to adapt that is brilliant. And I think something you said, Jay, sort of sparked me thinking, saying about, that you wouldn't want to play against us when when we're looking like this. And it's yeah. What would you not want to do if you're playing? You wouldn't want to be up against a defense like ours because you have to work exceptionally hard to get any change out of them. If you're a centre back, you really don't want to mark Ollie Palmer because it will hurt. You don't want to mark the likes of Mullin because he'll be on your back hassling you all the time. You don't really want to be up against wing backs like Barnett and McLean because they'll be running past you. That midfield, I don't want to be tackled by Dobson. That's a mugs game. And I don't want to be chasing the ball around while Matty James passes it around me. We do the things teams don't want teams to do against them. And that's a simplistic way of looking at it. But we're good at it.
I
But
certainly reckon our passing game is just incredible to watch at the moment. And I think since Howard's come on, we've gone a bit more long ball, but because he can kick a bit further than. But to be honest, it's just the way we hold the ball and we move it from side to side. And from where I sit in Macron's land, I feel people get a bit frustrated as well because we're not attacking so much because we're going from side to side. But what we are doing is probing when we're doing that. And
Yeah.
you've really got to have a really good football mind and to understand what they're doing. They're trying to get the gap to get Barnett or McLean in.
I think as well.
yeah,
Yeah, people get impatient, and yet they also think we go long ball, and I think that just about sums it up. What do you want exactly?
but but Mark, like, what's wrong with going long ball
Oh,
if it
nothing,
works? Like,
nothing.
it's the thing. It's the thing with the trends in football. If you're not playing tiki taka, passing round the back football, it's not good football. Well, what's wrong with
Yeah,
doing a big long diagonal to your wing back, then crossing into their strikers and scoring a goal? It doesn't matter how you play football. If you're getting results, what's wrong with a bit of long ball, a bit of you know old school football from time to time? I think you can't just play. You can win football many different ways. You don't have to play the same as everyone else, and that just shows how good Parkinson is. We can do bits of everything, and that's why we are where we are in the table.
I
100%.
was listening to Mick McCarthy on the Under the Kosh podcast this week. The language maybe isn't very PG, so if you're under 18, you might not want to listen. But highly recommend it for everybody else. He talked about, I can't remember the manager he was talking about, that he'd had a game where his team were passed out off the pitch, but they won 1-0. And the manager came in, like the managers go for a pint, don't they, after the game occasionally, and he was ranting about how they were the better side, and Mick McCarthy was just like, well, we won.
Yeah,
And it's just, that's all that matters, doesn't it? You don't get points for being a more appealing looking side. You get points for scoring goals and not conceding, and that's it.
But
And but like we do look good sometimes as well. So yeah, just a daft one in it, Chay.
I think the problem is with football now is there's a lot of managers who will stick to that style of football because it's the way this football trend's going. And if you don't play that sort of way, look at Southampton's manager, and we've mentioned, look at Vincent Kompany, got Burnley relegated last season, still got a job Bayern Munich,
Yeah.
by playing a certain way. For me, I'd much rather see Wrexham play the way they are, effective, dynamic football rather than pass it around the back when it's not always working. You look at Notts County last season, didn't work for them, and they were playing really pretty football as well. So yeah, this Wrexham side are great to watch, and that Burton result shouldn't be underestimated as well because they had their backs against the walls. It was a bit of a free hit against us. The conditions were terrible, and yet 1-0. We probably should have scored more. Fletcher had a chance. Mullin had a chance. Their keeper made some cracking saves. 1-0, 3 points in those conditions. You just can't complain at all.
Yeah, I think you got to give Max Crocombe a bit of a shout out. That's a man who's played international football for New Zealand. He's no mug, and yeah, maybe his side shouldn't be letting that goal in, whether that was his fault or the defense's fault. But he kind of balanced that out with some saves. He didn't really have much right saving either. So, we definitely deserved the result, even if it was a bit of a fluke goal.
Yeah, I don't blame him for the goal, particularly. It's the conditions more than the goalkeeper. Although the save from Fletcher is the jammiest save of all time. But still, fair enough. He made it. A bit like old Bradley Foster, of course, who had his one little hairy moments when that long range shot came through and he managed to get his foot on it. That didn't look great, but apart from that, my goodness, what a debut. I mean, he made so many sharp saves. I was very impressed with the lad. I mean, he's back up. He's not challenging Howard, but fair play to the guy.
The whole setup on Tuesday night was completely different. We'd go on about Parkinson, and his tactics, but he's brought in a whole new set of players, and they've all done very well. So, as you say, right across the board.
Yeah, Foster. I mean, what's the deal with this whole thing about Fosters whose names start with B getting the games and goal for us? I mean, Shakespeare was wrong when he said a Foster by any other name would keep us sweet, because to me, being a B Foster definitely gives you an advantage. It's the best example of nominative determinism. When your name brings your job about, like. I remember hearing about a dentist called Dr. Death. Maybe dentist is unfortunate. But it's the best example of nominative determinism, I think, since Chester signed Kevin Useless.
Was it a cost-saving measure but from Wrexham?
Yeah,
We had some Foster shirts lying around.
yeah. Lots of BF training gear. That's it, yeah. Well, fair play to him. I thought as well he grew in confidence because he was making some smart saves, and at the throughout high balls he was sort of punching and not getting that much distance on his punches. But then at the end, Crewe put a good cross in, and he took it straight off the striker's head. And you think, fair play, lad. He's feeling. I was going to say he's feeling 10 foot tall. He is about 10 foot tall, but he's thinking, yeah. I'm having a great day here, so he just comes and nails it and takes a cross under pressure when we needed that. Um, pat on the back for the guy. Fair play to him.
But
And then other players.
it's good for it.
I'm sorry, yeah.
It's good for him, isn't it? Because
Mm,
he's showcasing himself, isn't he?
yeah.
Managed to get an appearance for Wrexham, which he might not have got. He's going to be able to keep fit for the short-term contract that he's got. But with a performance like that, surely there'll be a National League club that will take a punt on him at some point. He
Yeah.
looked
Exactly
a decent.
He
so.
was training with us beforehand as well, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He wasn't brought in just because we're having a bit of an issue. He
Mm.
was already in the club.
Yeah, he's
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah. So we've had a good look at him. Aidan Davidson is the goalkeeping coach, of course. He knows what he's talking about. And yeah, they've had a chance to make an informed decision. And yeah, I mean, in the long term, he won't be with us because obviously we've got a string of really good keepers. But I think you're dead right, Chay. It's not just people noticing his performance, but it's also people talk within the game. The managers will be chatting to Parkinson, and Parkinson might say, "I've got a young lad here who, he's had the academy background and he's done well for us under pressure. Why don't you take a chance on him?" So yeah, I think it's brilliant. And then there's Aaron James, the very much Wrexham's Max Crewe, young, promising ball-playing right-sided centre-back who gets up and scores headers as well. I think he's been really good. The competition's name has changed, but his performances have stayed the same. I don't know what
Good
that
to see young lad coming through.
means. He played
Look at
right back
James,
last
though.
season for. Say again?
You look at him though. He looks a real promising talent, and if we were still in the National League, say we were in WST, he'd be starting for us right now, wouldn't he? He'd be a constant starter. For me, it'd be really nice to see him get out on loan and play some first team football somewhere.
I think did Phil Parkinson say that's the plan after January? But I really like him. It's only the fact that we've got so many good centre backs, as you alluded to before, Chay, that limits his chances in the league because he's got a lot of good attributes, isn't he? He's quick, he's confident on the ball, and also similarly to Cleworth, and I was again is maybe a daft thing to say, but you don't see him in trouble very often, do you? His little patch of the penalty area tends to be stress free. He just calmly handles situations, reads a game, intercepts, sorts things out. I like him.
I think one thing that we got going for us is that it's almost a bit like Chris Coleman's Wales side in that we've got a set of three centre backs that it doesn't. Granted, I don't think Wales. I know it's at a higher level, but didn't maybe quite have the depth that we've got in a sense that the quality to what we're playing against ratio. I don't know how to quite word that, but they were quite interchangeable for Wales. And if there was an injury, Ben Davies could go and slot back in a left wing back, and then James Collins could come in. And we've kind of got that where it doesn't really matter which of the players get injured. We've got a like for like almost that can go straight in. And even if we were in a real crisis, you've got Owen O'Connell could switch to one on the left or the right. Dan Scarr can come in the middle. George Evans, when he's back, could even slot into one of those roles. There's a lot of depth there, isn't there?
Yeah, it's terrific, isn't it? Fair play. We've got a lot going for us in our setup at the moment. Well, we'll wrap this bit up of talking about the performances, but shall we wrap it up with another exciting new feature that probably will die after this week? Who knows? We've had Neil playing pig or person last week. Well, as Bill laughs in surprise, revealing that when he's not on the show, he doesn't listen to it.
I do, but it was funny. He got all five right. It was a clean sweep, wasn't it? So
he was good, wasn't he? Yeah. Absolutely, and well played. You're back in my good books now after him. But I feel that maybe we should play the new quiz sensation that's sweeping the nation, the long who lasts longest, laughs longest, in which Chay and Bill will battle each other in a contest of general knowledge to see who is the better long. So, right, let me just fetch. I'll just fetch my League One title winners medal from back here.
I'm dreading this. I've had like 3 hours sleep, so we'll see how I do.
Right, Chay, heads or tails? I mean, there's neither a head or a tail on this. I'll say the bit which is inscribed is the head, because the rest of it's identical. Listen, it's very hard to flip a medal. It's big. Heads or tails?
Heads.
Heads it is. You want to go first or second? Should I explain the rules first?
Yeah, if you could.
You're going to take it in turns, and you've only got 5 seconds to name. No, should we say 4 seconds? Yeah, that'll make all the difference. To name a team in League One at the moment. The person who fails is the least long, whereas the person who doesn't fail is the longest long. Did I say that wrong? No.
Okay.
First or second, Chay? Stop thinking about teams in our division.
First.
Okie dokie. Are you ready to play the long who lasts longest, laughs longest?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
thanks for answering on his behalf. Okay, Chay, and I got to say, this doesn't bode well for you, your failure to answer that question. It's, Chay, name a team.
Wickham.
Birmingham,
Bolton.
Reading,
Huddersfield.
Wigan,
Wrexham.
Crawley,
Mansfield.
Burton,
Blackpool.
Stockport,
Charlton.
Cambridge,
Stevenage.
Bristol Rovers.
Wigan.
Have we had Wigan?
We've had Wigan.
We have Wigan.
Sorry, Chay. That was very impressive, wasn't it, Randy? The two of them was terrifying, that.
Yeah, I like to get how many in that under pressure is really good.
I think in fairness, Chay, you've not lost because you don't know the teams. You've lost because you weren't paying attention to what I was saying. You were just thinking of what to say next.
I think, though, that the decisive moment there was that I think Bill has been replaced by an AI because he was. What was going on? He was like a robot, wasn't he? He was just the moment Chay finished saying a team's name, he'd say Bristol Rovers. But he was just back and back to Chay so quickly. But Chay, I think there was cheating going on there. He must have. You had that fixtures on the screen. You must have done.
No. Just no. I was just thinking of all the recent fixtures, and then
Nice.
I was about to get stumped. I was quite close to being close to not getting there.
I would not have got anywhere near there. I'm telling you, that was epic. I'm sorry, Chay. You can take your frustration on him later.
I just wasn't listening to what Bill was saying. I was just thinking of League One teams. So, yeah.
That was magnificent, wasn't it, everyone? We'll have to do it again sometime. But that was the long who lasts longest, laughs longest. After this, we'll talk about the women's team. Well, if only Neil Williams was here, because he's been claiming that I've been bringing bad luck to the women's team, and I could have crowed about our excellent performance on Sunday. We won in the quarter-final of the Adran Trophy. First time ever we got into the semi-finals. Went to Barry, who are doing well. They're fourth in the league. They hadn't lost in a long time, and they beat us in the league at their ground, although admittedly we dominated them and didn't take chances, and then they got a bit of a jammy goal, if I'm honest. But this time, wow. I mean, the only complaint you could have was that we could have scored 10. I mean, we were really, really so good. And again, on a blustery day, it was the Wrexham side that triumphed. But it's great to see, when we're in a scrap for fourth place, that we're keeping going in the trophies. Maybe we can bring some silverware home. That would be brilliant, wouldn't it?
It'd certainly be nice. Couple of cup wins and decent league finishes for both sides would be just what the doctor ordered, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah. And Cardiff got knocked out as well in the trophy, admittedly by TNS, who are second in the league, and they've beaten us already this season, so they're formidable. But no, having Cardiff out the way doesn't hurt in these competitions, to be fair. There is a moment in that game that I really want to flag up, and I don't think it was in the highlights. Talking about using the conditions, Ava Suckley, who was outstanding on Sunday, has a number of really high quality performances, but she was tremendous. Nearly scored the greatest goal in the history of football. In fact, if it had gone in, I think we should have just stopped football. I just said that's it. We're never hitting this level again. Basically the wind was behind us, and just to give praise to the team as well, we dominated the first half, and you think, okay, the wind was against us actually, but if we were playing well into the wind, maybe the turnaround will alter things. Didn't. We were just completely dominant again in the second half. But with the wind behind her, I mean, it was the imagination as much as anything and the awareness of the situation. We'd just taken a throw on the halfway line. It was quite crowded by there. The two teams are scrapping to try and get possession. It drops to her on the halfway line, and she just has a fraction of a second to set herself and makes up her mind, and she hits a shot with the outside of her foot from the halfway line with the wind behind her, which loops into the box. The keeper can't get there to take it on the full, and the moment it bounces, she's in real trouble. Just bouncing right up under the bar, and it's a hell of a save by the keeper Molly Arneson, who to tip it over the bar. But oh my God, scoring a goal with the outside your foot from the halfway line. Like I say, I think football would be over then, to be honest.
Yeah,
I've been trying to think of something
would.
else I've seen the Wrexham player do that was quite as good as that because it was amazing. Any suggestions on the back of a postcard? Please, feel free. I know Mark Jones is.
I could tell you the least impressive goal I've ever scored. Oh, I've ever scored, or I've ever seen at the racecourse. Or maybe it wasn't the least impressive, but I remember Sam Easton going on an absolutely massive, mazy run, almost the entire length of the pitch. He shoots, it bounces off the keeper. Drew Broughton puts it in the net and wheels off as if he's just scored a worldie, but it was the most simple tapping I've ever seen in my life. They should have cancelled football for other reasons after that, but
Absolutely. I remember Mark Jones scoring a screamer at Oxford, and it's really frustrating because there is footage of it, but
I've seen it. That's one of the best goals I've ever seen. That is, in all fairness, outside of his foot from distance.
And the technique's unbelievable. He's quite a long way out, and hitting the outside of your foot, it can be quite good for placement and curve, but you don't normally, as both Suckley and Jones had also managed to welly it with the outside of your foot with pace. But there's not very good footage of it. There is footage of it, but it's really quite pixelated, so you can't enjoy the full magic of it. Oh, man. It's a shame, isn't it? All the cool stuff people must have done in the past.
So with Cardiff being knocked out of this tournament now, I know you said TNS is still in it, but it gives us a fantastic opportunity to really win it this year. Looking at the league table, we're quite adrift now. We're nowhere near the bottom because Aberystwyth and Cardiff Met are really, really struggling this season, and I do think we'll pick up enough points to get top four at some point. But focusing on these cup competitions, especially now with Cardiff not being in them, I feel like we could beat TNS over one leg, more chance of them beating them over one leg than Cardiff. Again, fair play to TNS. I watched the Wrexham TNS game last season, which was really good, but they've really stepped up their game this season. They look a real formidable side.
They brought some good players in the summer, but also they brought in a new manager, and she seems to be very sort of, your sort of modern, technical, all based on preparation. They've got a very clear way they want to play, and they're a good side. We only lost 1-0 at their place, though, and had a couple of really good chances in the second half. But they did play better than us, so no point in denying that. But semi-finals are still a home and away affair. We're very strong at the Rock. The other teams left in are Swansea are through, and then it's either Britain Ferry or Aberystwyth. Their quarter-final was postponed on Sunday, but therein hangs a tale that could be interesting for Wrexham, because you're absolutely right, Chay, in your summation of the table. The bottom two, I think, they're no matter if we end up in the bottom four, let's hope not. They're not going to catch us. There's no chance. The bottom two are much weaker, I think, than the other sides. Aberystwyth are quite competitive, but not at the right level. Cardiff Met are below them, I feel. But then looking above us, we're 5 points off fourth place. No, is it 4 points off fourth place with 5 games left? Not where you want to be, but it's doable. We've got home games against Barry next Sunday as well, and they're the team in fourth place. The outlier is Britain Ferry, who are fifth. they got 3 games in hand, which in a game in a league where you only play 14 matches is a big chunk of the season. So that sound obviously on the paper that looks really bad because they could bounce up the table and leave us miles behind. But their pitch is a real problem. They were supposed to play Swansea in midweek last week. It's been postponed once. It was postponed again. Their game on Sunday was postponed. They're part timers and they're gonna have to be playing. Well, they're amateurs. I beg your pardon. They're gonna have to be really catching up these games, and that could really cause an issue for them. So it'd be quite interesting to see exactly how it all pans out with them. There'll be another game behind by next weekend, I assume, because I think the rules say you got to play the cup games first, same as in the men's game. So they'll have to try and play Aberystwyth on Sunday. So they could have a major, major problem there in terms of there'll be 4 games behind everyone else. I may be totally wrong in saying this, but I do know that in some levels of FAW competitions, if you postpone a home game twice, it gets flipped and you have to play it away because they want to get the leagues finished. So they've just postponed Swansea twice. I don't know whether that will come into effect or not. I genuinely don't, but they've got some logistical problems coming their way. So maybe, even though it looks bad that they're ahead of us with lots of games in hand, they've got a tough second half of the season, I think.
Yeah, and it's not like the men's game where you've got the level of depth and the ability to train professionally every day all week. Even the teams that are semi-pro are still exactly that, semi-pro. Most of those women are going to have a real job, aren't they, behind that? So
Yeah.
the level of fitness that's required to play Sunday, Tuesday, or Sunday, Wednesday, or whatever it's going to end up being is it's going to take its toll, isn't it?
100% right. Yeah, absolutely.
You got a
Interesting.
feel for Britain Town. That you really got a feel for them. So they look like they've
Oh, yeah.
played some good football this season. And if their season really crashes and burns because of logistics and not being able to play games, regardless of with it being good for Wrexham, you've got a feel for them.
Oh, yeah. They've done ever so well. But yeah, it may be something we gain from. They're not going to get relegated, at least. So
No.
even if it fizzles out, there's no way on earth they're going to come in the bottom. Well, it's only the bottom team that goes down. There's no way they'll be in the bottom 2, even if it does all go wrong. They've already got more points, I think, than the bottom 2 will accumulate in the whole season. But yeah, they're good. But hey, if let's take advantage of people's misfortune. Scrooge for president. Let's go on to our guest, Dan Bachmann. He was a good keeper for us, wasn't he? Sadly, injuries affected him, but yeah, I don't know. Do you have good memories of Bachmann looking very solid in that season under Kevin Wilkin?
Good keeper. As you say, he got injured, and then obviously the Kevin Wilkin era came to an end, so it was always going to be difficult at that point.
Well, we'll
Well,
hear. Oh, sorry, go on.
it's pretty crazy that him and Ben Foster played with each other, didn't they? At
Yeah.
one point in
Yeah.
for Watford. So yeah, two good Wrexham goalkeepers. It's a shame injury did curtail it because, of course, look what he's gone and done for the rest of his career. He's obviously a very good goalkeeper. It's great that you've managed to get a chance to talk to him, man.
Well, massive thanks to the Watford media team. I can assure you that I do try and contact different clubs, and some media teams just never go back to you. Whereas Watford were brilliant, really worked hard to make it happen, and Dan did as well. They were fantastic. So I'm very, very grateful to them for that. And Dan's a smashing bloke anyway. He was keen to do it, and I do ask him about working with Ben Foster, and indeed being first choice in the European Championships for Austria, as well as chatting about his time at Wrexham, which he speaks of with great fondness. So let's have a listen. After this will be Dan Bachmann. Well, Dan, thank you so much for joining us, and straight off the training field as well. That's very generous of you. You you made a real impression when you were on loan with us. But if we could just briefly go back before that, I mean, goalkeepers need character, and you showed character because I believe you came over when you were 16. You know, coming from Austria to Stoke when you were 16. I mean, that must have been a very bold choice that you made.
Yeah, it was obviously very difficult at first, coming at such a young age with, different country, not just a different country, different language, different culture. It was obviously my English wasn't always as it is now. So it was very difficult at first being away from home for the first time in my life. And but yeah, it all worked out pretty well.
But didn't you break your back quite early on when you were over here as well?
Yeah, so I signed in July, and then in November I had a stress fracture in my spine, which turned into this thing called spondylolisthesis. I don't know how you say it in English.
Neither do I. Don't worry about it.
Basically, an infection in my back, and it was pretty bad. I lost a lot of weight because obviously I couldn't do anything. I had a cast that went from just underneath my chest all the way down to one of my knees, so it was quite bad. But obviously got through it, and not had any issues since. Obviously, it was one of them things that just needed healing and needed repairing. But yeah, it was tough times, especially after so quickly after coming over, that kind of everything just came to a halt for pretty much, well, not far off a year, just under a year really. So it was difficult, but yeah, I got through it, and these things happen in football, and it's helped me along the way, obviously with other things mentally and whatnot.
I was going to say, goalkeeper needs physical and mental resilience, and goodness me, that you've passed that test very early on, haven't you? And
Sure.
then obviously, that could have knocked you off course, but you've clearly made really good progress at Stoke. When you come on loan to us, I mean, it's a step down coming to the National League. How did that all come about?
For me, it wasn't really, I didn't look at it as a step down because at this stage of my career, I've not played any professional football. So, when I got the call that Wrexham are interested in signing or want to sign me on loan for the season, there was no even, I wasn't even thinking about it really. I just said, yeah, I'll do it because I just wanted to play football. Obviously, I had a quick look, with me obviously not being English, not being British, I didn't really know too much about Wrexham's history and Wrexham in general. The quick look on the internet, I was like, okay, yeah, this looks decent, regardless of the league and whatever else, but just as a club, I thought that looked, pretty decent. So I went there pretty quickly. I played a pre-season game. I can't remember who it was against. I think it was against a league opponent. Can't remember anyway. And obviously ended up signing for them, playing for them for Wrexham for the season, and it's kind of it was the foundation of where I am today because I made a little bit of a name for myself there, and obviously coming back from that loan the season after I went to Bury, who were at the time still in League One. So it shows again for young players to go on loan. Nothing even to do with Wrexham per se, but that nowadays young players look at leagues and go, I'm too good for that, and I'm too good for that, and it doesn't work like that. You need to play men's football, and for me, obviously, Wrexham was the one that gave me the base to get to where I am today.
I'm just trying to have a look here at what friendly it might have been. We played Bolton. I'm just looking at. I'll check my facts and see which one.
Yeah,
it was Bolton.
Was it Bolton?
Bolton, it was.
Is that where it was? There we go.
I just thinking that jumping ahead as well, that you're saying about the value of going on loan. I mean, Wrexham currently benefiting with that from a goalkeeper who has strangely sort of followed your career path. Arthur Okonkwo, who was at Arsenal, went to Sturm Graz and won the Austrian Cup,
right.
and comes on loan. And of course, now we're in a position, because we're in a higher division and because we've got money and because we're clearly heading upwards further and further, that we can keep him. I mean, he's another example, but it is so great just to get out and play. I don't want to denigrate like academy football at all, but serious football against blokes playing for a living is different.
Right. There's no secret that going on loan and playing men's football, regardless of the league, is different to playing academy football. There's no doubt about that. And like I said, I was lucky that it was a club like Wrexham that wanted to sign me, which obviously even at the time of them being in a conference, we're still the biggest club in the conference,
Yeah.
stadium wise and with the supporters. And I'm pretty sure you'll know better than me, but every home game, even at this point, I'm talking, what was it, 10 years ago? We had 4,000 or 5,000 people at every home game, which for the conference is an incredible turnout and just shows the size of the club. And like you mentioned, now with the backing the club have from America, it's just going to get bigger and bigger.
I mean, just thinking, going back to when you first came to us as well. You played your first game at Dartford down south, and I always remember. So I'm a failed goalkeeper, and so I always fancy that I know about goalkeeping, even though I didn't really do it very well. And in the past, I've looked at new keepers warming up before a match, and sort of thought, oh, right, this one looks dicey, or and I've been quite accurate. When I watched, I remember watching you warming up just by the corner flag, keeping you away from the goal mouth, and thinking, "Oh, this guy really knows what he's doing." He just looked so technically tidy. And we got off to a great start there. We won there. Louis Moult scored. No, Wes York scored a couple. Louis Moult showing quality.
It was 2-1. I remember that. Yeah. I remember their goal exactly because it was. I'm pretty sure it was a header, and I saved it. But the referee, it was like, it would have been an incredible save if the ref gave the save, but the ref gave it as a goal, and I'm still not sure to this day if it crossed the line. It was one of those that was really close to that goal line technology. You don't know, but I remember that goal like really clearly.
I'll get on it. I'll get on it now. This afternoon, that's my job. I'll find that and I'll prove. Well, I'll prove that you saved it.
But we won anyway. But I remember that goal.
I have to be careful what I say sometimes to players, because last Sunday I was commentating on our women's team, and our centre forward was 1-on-1, went round the keeper and scored. They gave her offside. I was convinced she wasn't. I got the video up on the coach back, saw she was onside, but when I started to tell her, she's like, "Don't tell me. I don't want to know that that's going to count." So, but I'll find out for you, definitely. As the season went on, it was a strange sort of season, frustrating for us because obviously you're looking great, but injuries keep kicking in for you. And we do really well in the cups, which ironically I think doesn't help us in the league, does it? We get third round of the cup, final of the FA Trophy.
Yeah,
it seems to distract us a little bit, I think, and the games piling up.
Yeah, and obviously you mentioned injuries, and I mean I was really unfortunate. I think it was only a handful of games in the season I got knocked out of training, got quite a bad head injury, and I remember being in hospital in Wrexham on the day, and it was quite scary because I didn't know where I was. And I remember Louis Moult stayed with me the whole day, and I only really it happened around 11 o'clock in the morning, and I can only really remember from about 4 or 5 o'clock onwards, and he stayed with me in the hospital because obviously I had no family here, I had no one here, and so I remember that. And obviously he waited for me, ended up taking me home that night because I could go home that night, and I remember that. And then I had another injury at Torquay away. I did my medial ligament in my knee. It wasn't a bad knee injury, but obviously it cost me another 4 or 5 games that I ended up missing. But I think that comes again with the going on loan as a young goalkeeper, because it's different pressure which your body reacts different to. And obviously at that time, my body reacted probably not as I would have liked to it, with like constant little niggles. And obviously the head injury was unfortunate, but then I had a little knee injury. Then come February time, I had a little quad injury, like little niggles that kept happening, which you kind of have to get out of your system, because it's a lot to do mentally with the pressure. Loads of games for the first time in my career, playing Saturday, Tuesday, loads of travelling, which that's why it just plays into the overall experience of going on loan as a young player, and especially as a goalkeeper. But you mentioned the cup. I remember the FA Trophy. I missed. Was it the final or the semi-final?
The final you missed, yeah.
So I missed the final because I went away with Austria.
Yeah,
and obviously the club have they have to release me. There is no, you know what I mean. It's like it's compulsory from the UEFA, and I went away with the Austria under 21s, and obviously missed the FA Trophy final at Wembley, which is a bit of a shame. But that's part of football. I mean, luckily I've got to play at Wembley a few years later for Austria, but that was a bit of was a bit disappointing to miss that game, because I remember was it the semi-final at Gateshead?
Now that was the quarterfinal, and yeah, you were a hero at
Did we win
that.
on penalties?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. So, what was the semi-final then? Can't remember the semi-final.
Semi-final was Torquay.
Oh, so I don't think I played that.
I think
Did I?
Andy was in it. Yeah, you'd
Yeah,
been injured just
yes.
before the final, and then you
Yeah.
came back in for the last league game before the international break.
Yes, that's
But that
right.
meant you missed the
So that
final.
was
But
obviously going away. Yeah.
the Gateshead
Um,
one. Wow.
yeah, I remember that.
But you was, I remember that game very clearly. And just to explain to listeners the context of it, Gateshead under Gary Mills played some beautiful football. They'd come to us our first home game of the season, and they were just untouchable. And they beat us 3-0. It looked amazing. They were right up there. We draw at home in the trophy, replay at Gateshead, freezing cold winter's day, as I recall.
It was sunny though. I remember it was sunny.
Yeah.
But it was freezing cold.
Yeah. They score straight away. We get an equaliser and go ahead.
Yeah.
They take it to extra time. You make a string of... They're all over us, and you made a string of fantastic saves. I mean, you were really... You kept us in that game.
Yeah.
And then we were the stronger team in added time. Couldn't get the goal. Goes to penalties. How does it feel then before a penalty shootout? Are you feeling responsibility, or are you just thinking, right, they can't expect me to save?
I think as a goalkeeper going to a penalty shootout, it's quite... there is no pressure. There's no pressure, but it's a situation where us goalkeepers can only win. Yeah. No one's going to blame the goalkeeper for not winning a penalty shootout. Yeah. So that's the only scenario in the life of a goalkeeper where we can't lose. Yeah. Whereas, in any other game scenario, everyone just looks at our mistakes. Nobody really looks at how many saves and how great we play. If we make 10 saves in a game, save a penalty, it's 0-0 in the 90th minute, and then we have an absolute howler in the 91st minute and we lose 1-0. No one's going to talk about that we should have lost the game 5-0. It's going to be like we lost the game because of the keeper. Yeah. And in a penalty shootout, that kind of goes out the window. That's the only time where we can only win and we can only be the hero. And if we lose, we lose. It's not going to be our fault. But if we win, it's because of us. So it's quite a nice feeling going into a penalty shootout. And obviously, I've got quite a good penalty record over the last few years. So every time there is some sort of penalty shootout or even in a game with a penalty, I feel quite confident.
Well, I've got to say as well, it must be so different for you now, a penalty shootout, because you get lots of data on the penalty takers, whereas then in the National League, I would imagine nobody had a clue what the Gateshead penalty. Maybe their main guy, but the others, you're just going into it blind and reading the situation, aren't you?
No, that's right. That's changed massively. Obviously, the higher you go, I'm sure it'll be different at Wrexham now as well. They'll have all the data available, and that'll all be different there as well now. So, sure. I mean, not just club-wise, also the times have changed as well over the last 10 years. 10 years is a long time in football and technology and anything in life. So, times have certainly changed.
I was looking at the video of that game yesterday, and the odd thing about it is that Gateshead, a really nice club, really friendly. Their media guys are fantastic, and they were so accommodating. I always remember that because it's such a big old international stadium. They gave me my own booth to commentating because it was so much unused press area up there. Incredible. But at the end of the game, their media guy came to me really looking bad, and I thought, what's going on here? And he said, I'm so sorry. He said, our cameraman was so annoyed when you saved that decisive penalty that he stopped recording. So he didn't record Louis Moult scoring the winning penalty.
Oh, no.
So at least you wound up a Geordie. That's important.
Yeah, that's all right. I'll take that.
You also, you played in a derby at the Diva Stadium. I won't talk about the outcome of it, seeing as, they scored a late winner. A hell of a header, that's as I recall.
I remember.
Just think about the actual atmosphere. That was in the bubble game era, where I thought the atmosphere, because the fans were sort of bussed in and it was really tightly controlled, I thought that turned the atmosphere a bit toxic there. There's always been a hell of an atmosphere, Chester. I go back a long way seeing them. But it almost made it a bit nastier, I think, within the stadium. The noise. What was your recollection of that?
It was. From what I remember, it was obviously at this point the best atmosphere I've played in, even though the stadium's not very big at all. but it's very compact. Obviously, fans are really close to it. I don't know how many people it holds, maybe 5,000-6,000, something like that. And it was obviously packed out.
Yeah.
And it felt a lot more, obviously with it being a derby, and it felt. I remember it feeling quite aggressive. And I remember a couple of the actions from the game as well. Remember that cross I came for and got absolutely clattered. I won't forget that. There's a punch I came for, and I remember that. I don't know why I remember that so clearly. But yeah, it was certainly at this time the best or biggest game of my career, atmosphere wise, and I really enjoyed it. And that's obviously the games that you learn the most from. When you're exposed to that for the first time, to that kind of vicious away fans, and not just football there. There's a lot going on, and it's very enjoyable though. And obviously, now it's it's the norm. Obviously, especially in the Championship, it's quite it can get quite feisty as well. Obviously, we've got a local derby in the Championship with Luton, which is always very nasty and vicious. And but yeah, that's very enjoyable games in football.
Yeah. And my boring fact about their capacity, when you were saying how big it is that the minimum capacity in the EFL is 6,000. They were in the EFL when they built that ground, but they made a mistake. That the standing areas behind both goals were supposed to be seated. And then they realised if they did seat them, the capacity would be lower than 6,000. And if they dropped out of the league, which they did, they wouldn't be allowed back in. So those behind the goals are quite poor views for a terrace, because they're designed for seats. The steps are too big. So, but they had to do it, otherwise they get turfed out and not get back in. You had very strong characters in the changing room. You got Manny Smith and Blaine Hudson in front of you are a good pair. Keats and Bishop and all those experienced players as well. And then Kevin Wilkins, always struck me as a really nice guy, really good eye for a player. Carl Darlington comes in as well, helping with the coaching. Were there any particular characters that stick into your mind? Or
obviously Blaine was the one. Obviously that that's when I think about Wrexham. Obviously, apart from Louis Mould, who obviously was from Stoke as well, so we travelled together every day. Which helped a lot. But yeah, Blaine was a big character, big lad as well. And I remember just having a really good season there, off the pitch as well. I got on well with everyone. And obviously for me, like I said, I was only 19, 20 years old. So I'm coming into a dressing room full of, senior pros who've played at obviously a higher level as well. And I'm coming in there, and it's a different kind of pressure as well that you put yourself on as a young player. Not just on the pitch, off the pitch as well. How you're going to fit in and how you're going to get on with the players, and how they're going to take to you. But everyone was fantastic, and I just had a really, really good season there. I mean, there's not one thing about Wrexham that I would say didn't help me in my career.
Oh, that's fantastic to hear. That is. Well, we've been very proud of you since you've got on. I remember loving it in the Euros, watching you playing all Austria's games, and you came very close to knocking Italy out as well. You gave them a hell of a hard time. I'm still not sure they should have disallowed Marko Nautovic's goal, but then I'm biased, naturally. But yeah, I mean, that must have been an incredible experience for you.
Yeah, the whole year, 2021 for me was incredible, really, because obviously I've signed for Watford in 2017, and I was here the first season as backup, third choice on the bench a few times, and then went on loan to Scotland to Kilmarnock and had quite a successful season there as well under Steve Clarke, and then came back, and it kind of didn't happen for me how I expected it to be, which obviously in football happens. You got to bide your time, especially as a goalkeeper. And I had Ben Foster and Aurelio Gomez here with me, so that didn't make it any easier. And then obviously when we got relegated a few years ago, I managed to get in the team in January, and started playing quite regularly. All happened really quickly, and ended up playing the full second half of the season. We got promoted. Obviously, got promoted back to the Premier League, and got my call up for Austria, and then made my debut for Austria in England against England, which obviously with the history of me being here, my wife being English, was quite amazing, really. And then obviously getting told I'm going to be number one for the country, for Austria in the Euros was there's like an incredible 6 months. I remember when the goalie coach called me. while we were in the hotel. That was 4 or 5 days after the England game when I made my debut for Austria. We were in the hotel, and we were playing Slovakia on the Sunday, the last friendly before the Euros. And obviously, you can kind of tell who's going to play against Slovakia. Will play in the Euros. And he called me on a Saturday night about 9:30. And he goes like, "Oh, where are you, Dan?" And I said, "I'm just in the players' lounge with the lads. We're just playing cards. So can you come see me in the lobby?" And I was like, "Oh, here we go." So anyway, I went to see him, and obviously nervous, because I thought I had good chances, obviously because of the season we had. I had a great season myself, like great 6 months. Got promoted to the Premier League, so I'll be playing in the Premier League, and also I played really well in my debut against England. So I'm thinking, sure, they've got a chance here. But you don't know. You start questioning everything when you go. Like those 30 seconds it took me to get to the lobby. So he was waiting there for me. I sit down, and the first thing he said to me was, "What do you want to hear?" And I thought to myself, surely he wouldn't say that if he's going to tell me, "Well, you're not playing." But I'm obviously going to say, "Well, that I'm playing." And he's not going to go, "Well, no, you're not." So I thought, as soon as he said that, I thought, okay, this sounds good. So I said, "Well, obviously that I'm playing tomorrow." And he goes, "Yeah, you're playing tomorrow, and you're going to be playing in the Euros as well." And I still get goosebumps now because it was just like over the 6 months, everything that's happened there, from being frustrated not playing in the Championship. Obviously, bear in mind behind Ben Foster, so it was obviously difficult to get in. But then obviously taking over from Ben and having a really successful season to all of a sudden playing in a major championship for my country has just been incredible. And that's where kind of my career really started, really, in that January 2021.
Oh, we all enjoyed watching you. I promise you, we were rooting for you. I tell you what, and I just a couple of quick things as well. I mean, little links weirdly with current Wrexham as well. In that, I mean, working with Ben Foster, I'd imagine he's goalkeepers have that camaraderie, don't you? And I'd imagine he'd be a good bloke to work with.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Fozzie was a very, you probably know Ben. He's very outgoing, very loud. He can take any room and make it his own. And no, he's great to be around. And obviously for me, especially when he first came, was great to learn a lot from him. Not just football and things, things off the pitch, and from the mental side, and the way he sees the game, the way he's relaxed about things, and not putting too much pressure on himself. It was great to learn a lot of things from him.
Absolutely. The other thing I'm thinking about is, of course, celebrity owners. Now we've got Rob and Ryan, but you got Elton John. That must be pretty crazy. One of my most exciting moments of my life was that I'd love Always Sunny, and so when I found out that Rob McElhenney and Caitlin Olsen play with their kids while listening to my commentary, I got a bit overexcited. But I saw a thing saying that you get the same sort of sensation with Elton John watching the games in LA as well.
Yeah, I mean, he comes to a few games. Last season, he was at the Ipswich game together with Ed Sheeran, and we watched the game together. But yeah, I've met Elton John a handful of times over my time at Watford. He's always been very pleasant and very polite, and quite interesting how much he actually knows about the game. I'll never forget when we played Swansea last game of the season when we got promoted. We already got promoted last game of the season at home to Swansea. Came in the dressing room before the game, and he started talking about a game from like 6 months before against Coventry away, and he was like talking about things, and I'm like, so you actually sit in your mansion in Hollywood or Beverly Hills, wherever you live, watching Watford against Coventry at probably 6 in the morning. But it just shows how much he loves the football club, and how invested he is in the club. So it's always been a pleasure to meet him, to be around him, and obviously got to see him in concert as well at Vicarage Road, which was amazing. So he's a big ambassador and a big name behind the club.
Yeah, both our clubs very fortunate to have such fantastic people behind them. Absolutely. And I've had an insight into that midnight watching of match, or in the middle of the night, because it's astonishing for Wrexham how many people are staying up at 3 a.m. around the world, wherever they are, to watch us. It's absolutely, honestly,
it's great. It's great.
Astounding.
It brings a new perspective to the club, but not just in Wrexham's case. It's not just for the football club; it's for the whole area, for the community, for the economy in Wrexham. I'm sure it's played its part as well. So it's fantastic all around for everyone involved with Wrexham Football Club and Wrexham, the town as well.
You've hit the nail on the head. Welcome to Wrexham is about community, really, and the people who come in are grabbed by that often much more than the football, and then the football's a byproduct which they fall in love with. And the town is, well, a city now, but it's different. It's different now. It's much more upbeat. Gives you real self-confidence when you find out that Ryan Reynolds has heard of you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
The whole town feels different. Well,
yeah.
Dan, all I can say is thank you so much for giving your time like this. You've been very generous with your time. I do want as well to put on records that the media guys at Watford have been amazing and so helpful in setting this up. And I really, really appreciate this. Often you contact a club, never hear back from them. They've been all over it. So many thanks.
We are very lucky here with our media team, aren't we?
Yeah.
We are very lucky. I've got one of them looking at me, so I've got to be careful what I say.
Yeah, no, absolutely,
We are very, very lucky at Watford.
And the best wishes to you guys for the rest of the season. I hope
Thank
that you flourish.
Likewise.
Brilliant, absolutely. Thank you very much. But Dan,
I would say, I'd like, to meet Wrexham next year in the Championship, but I'd rather not because obviously we'd be in the Premier League then. So that's the aim. But it'd be nice, obviously, if you went up and we went up, and then maybe meet in the Premier League in a couple of years' time. So that would be that would be the plan.
It's a deal. Brilliant.
Right. Nice to see you.
Dan Bachmann there, a lovely bloke and a top keeper. And of course, he's currently doing well for Watford in the Championship. Let's hope he can get up to the Premier League as we suggested. And then also that we can get up there afterwards and we can have our Dan Bachmann derby and the top level. It might be live, even if it's Saturday on 3 o'clock as well, because there now seems to be serious. You saw what I did there, Chay? It was good, wasn't it? There seems to be serious talk about the 3 p.m. blanket ban on coverage for 2 hours on a Saturday being lifted. Chay, do you want to very briefly explain just what it is before we talk about the possibility of it ending?
So the 3 p.m. blackout, I believe, is basically designed to protect the lower leagues of the English, Scottish, and Welsh game, where basically no games at all can be shown from 3 till 5 o'clock. To encourage people from back in the day maybe to go and watch football live rather than sitting at home and watching, Premier League football or whatever. But is it outdated this day and age? I'm so torn on the issue myself. You open it up, what you think?
I think if we're completely honest and realistic about it, there are enough people illegally streaming games from all across the world at 3 o'clock that it's pretty much redundant. If you want to watch a game at 3 o'clock, there are plenty of means that are, let's be brutally honest, are quite easily accessible if you're that way inclined to get hold of the games that you want to watch. Somebody who lives in Wrexham or Rochdale or Bury or whoever who wants to watch Man United playing at 3 o'clock, if they really want to do it, they can. So I think we're past the point of no return with that. It's just it's a case of then how much do you encourage the people who are not technically minded to and not that you need a huge amount of technical knowledge to do it, but if you're the type of person who just wants to have a Sky package or BT package or whatever, and you're not going to go and look for it illegally, then that's the small window of people that aren't going to games live but also aren't streaming, isn't it, really, Chay?
I think it's probably a bigger window than you think it is. I think most people do like to watch games legally. My concern would, from a Wrexham point of view, I actually think it would benefit us a lot. I think we're packing out the stadium week in, week out, regardless. And I think it would really serve, a lot of people who live in Manchester. We have a lot of Wrexham fans who live in Manchester, Liverpool, London, who will want to watch the Wrexham games from the comfort of their home. For me, it would be, the smaller sides in big cities, your Altrinchams, your Dagenham, Redbridge, people like that who will just go rather than, you know what, I'm going to go watch West Ham in the pub because it's going to cost me, I can get 5 pints, watch a game in the pub, and go home rather than going to watch your local side. I think it will affect sides like that who are maybe not as quite established or maybe are other people's second sides.
My one counterpoint to that is that how often are United and City on at 3 o'clock on a Saturday anyway? United, City, maybe there's a couple of the London clubs that will be playing at 3 o'clock on a Saturday, but I can't even remember the last time I saw a Liverpool fixture that wasn't listed on a Sunday or a Monday or a Saturday morning.
That's because of the blackout, isn't it?
And your memory's not great, Bill, because Liverpool were supposed to play on Saturday morning last weekend, weren't they? But it was postponed.
Sorry, but I mean that that would be outside the blackout though, wouldn't it?
Oh, I see. Playing on 3 o'clock on a Saturday.
Yeah, sorry,
Right,
maybe I didn't express. You're not completely wrong, Chay, but I do think that the way they've been creative in escaping the blackout has actually created, like by having games on pretty much every day of the week in some way or another, has actually created a situation where the blackout has kind of become pointless because they're not going to change that fixture scheduling is so successful. They're not going to change that. They're still going to have Liverpool on whatever statistically is the prime time for Liverpool or United to be playing. It'll just be that, when it's the week that it's Chelsea's turn to play at 3 o'clock or the week that it's Arsenal's turn to play at 3 o'clock or whoever, we'll just be able to watch them on TV instead.
I think whether it's right or wrong, to quote Robbie Williams, I think it's inevitable. So, Andy, have you burned your dodgy Fire Stick or?
Yeah, the technology is there and it's very easy to find. If you can operate a laptop, you can get your dodgy stream to watch the football. I think that it's just moved on. I think it's time for the blackout to go, is my feeling. I think if you're a Wrexham fan, you'll go and watch Wrexham.
It's a far cry, isn't it, Andy, from when we were kids and people made fun of Man United because they had fans in Kent. And now everybody's reaching all over the world. And incredibly, of course, Wrexham are. I feel very mixed up about it. I do think it's inevitable. I do feel mixed up about it because the wonderful thing that's happened to Wrexham means that it'll benefit us. How I would have felt if we were in the National League now, struggling along, and had competition live on TV Saturday at 3 o'clock. I'm not so sure. I mean, I would say that I don't know. There's been research lately that has suggested that actually this won't affect attendances on Saturdays at 3 o'clock. But I'm a little wary of research in the sense that, that sort of research, because it tends to be done by interested parties who want to get the results that they're hoping for. So I'm a little cynical about that. But I just think, sometimes in the past when Wrexham have not been like they are now, we've played games on Fridays or earlier kickoffs because there's a rugby international on television. I found out a bizarre thing last week that our biggest ever win against Barnsley was on a Friday night in the 60s because someone on the Wrexham board got wind that Bangor on D Races had applied to have a race that Saturday. And I mean, it's strange to think now that would affect us. But we moved our game to the Friday and then found out Bangor on D didn't have races on the Saturday and it was too late to sort it out. Okay, the good old days, eh? Or organisation. But I don't know. I think
there's going to be a percentage of people that are going to not go to a match and stay in the pub.
Yeah.
How big that percentage is, I don't know. But how many more people will having the games on a Saturday afternoon attract people into football and then go and watch a match? I don't know.
I think Chay is right, to be fair, in saying it's the smaller clubs in the bigger cities that are the ones that are going to feel this the most. I think if you are from Wigan and you're a football fan, you're probably going to go to the Wigan game, aren't you? Even though it is quite close to United and all the other clubs around that area.
It's clubs like Marine, isn't it? And people like that who are small clubs who make money off people not going to watch Liverpool or Everton because of the 3 p.m. blackout. They can't afford to buy tickets for, or can't afford Sky subscription, what have you. I can understand the illegal streaming thing, but I think if they do lift this 3 p.m. blackout, then the Premier League have to do more to safeguard the ecosystem of the Football League, and definitely lower, in my opinion. They have to do more, pay more into the pot to make sure it is, more, even if that goes into making ticket prices cheaper in the long run. Especially, you look at these Premier League sides, look at Arsenal, and look at Aston Villa's Champions League ticket pricing. It's getting extortionate. So maybe lifting the 3 p.m. blackout can improve match day goers. But that's me being very optimistic.
Yeah, the problem is Premier League clubs have got a proven track record of not trickling things down, isn't it? That's although I agree with you, that would be feasible, and who knows what influence the football ombudsman, when they're finally appointed, would be able to do. I can't help thinking when you were saying then, Chay, though, it makes me think of Silvio Berlusconi, who of course was for a long time president of AC Milan, who was a bit ahead of the curve in terms of scamming money out of football fans, shall we say. I don't think he listens because but in the late 80s, he was predicting that there'd be no ticket fees, there'd be no admission fee to go to top level football because all the money would come from television, and part of the television success is you need a big crowd in there, and so they'd let fans in for free to be the backdrop of this fantastic event. Now, of course, football clubs aren't going to do that because they grab for every penny they can. But the sort of concept's correct, isn't it? Really, it's TV that matters in terms of the money coming in.
Well, I think in a time where I'm getting this from a video that Chay sent me earlier, where Man United are cost cutting by not paying the cost cutting £60 off the bonuses of all the staff when they're paying their players hundreds of thousands a week, kind of shows what kind of people are in charge of some Premier League clubs. And not only that, maybe there is a solution to this. It's a bit of a halfway house where you remove the blackout for, let's say, League One clubs downwards, and allow those teams to have a share of the revenue of how much they generate themselves, kind of like the iFollow model already is, where I don't know quite how it works logistically, but we get more when we sell more, don't we, abroad?
Yeah.
So is there a place for a model of that League One downwards, and it gives the opportunity for that, I don't know, that Rochdale fan that has moved to London to just watch Rochdale, who's never going to go up and watch the side at home on a normal week. So perhaps that is the way to do it, and then you might even actually generate some interest from your average football fan who can't get to a United game, who's a United fan from Manchester, who might go, oh, I'm not going to go all the way to Salford or Stockport to watch a game, but I'll sit at home and pay a tenner to watch the stream of them playing at 3 o'clock.
I think that's a lovely idea, but the problem is, I think what the driving force that makes this inevitable is the big teams making more and more money. I mean, I don't know if you noticed, but that meeting a couple of weeks ago, the Premier League, where they voted through those ATP regulations that Man City are angry about, something else was passed in that meeting which didn't get anywhere near them. Fuss was they agreed in principle to set up their own streaming platform for live matches by the Premier League.
Oh, wow, really?
And they had a feasibility study. As we know, I mean, the Premier League knocks every other league in the world out of the park in terms of its TV money. It's miles and miles ahead. The current TV deal is worth 2.5 billion to the Premier League. But this feasibility study said that if they started up their own platform, they could collectively bring in revenue of 24 billion. Now, those are sort of numbers that make people who've invested in Premier League teams sit up and pay attention. Admittedly, that is revenue. I don't think that they've added in the substantial running costs of doing that. And we all know that it's not easy to set up a really reliable, stable streaming platform. But that's apparently what they're looking at. Although they think that they seem to think their audience there is a sort of the casual or armchair fan of a club, not a general football fan. So they seem to be thinking that, if you are an Everton fan and you live away from Goodison Park, you'd be really into the streaming thing, but maybe not people who have an allegiance with a local club as well. I don't
I
know.
don't know, Mark. I mean, I pay enough for my Sky Sports and stuff,
Yeah.
and it is pretty much for the most part just for the football.
Mm.
If the Premier League broke away and charged, let's say, somewhere between a fiver and a tenner a month, I'd be very tempted to pay for that, even though I probably wouldn't use it a huge amount.
Yeah.
It's weird. Like, I think streaming is definitely the way forward. Just on a side note, watching some of the Amazon coverage last week and having the rapid replays. So if you came into a match about 30, 40 minutes in and there'd been 3 goals, the rapid replays just played all of them, all the goals in a row,
Yeah.
and then straight away went straight into the live footage. I mean, like, that's the future, isn't it? I think it's just don't want it to go in the hands of greed, really.
And that, sadly,
This is
where it'll end up.
this is but this is why we need to. If we, it's going to end up there. The Premier League have an obligation to safeguard non-league football, not so much the EFL. Because I think the EFL is really thriving. You look at the attendances; it's excellent for most clubs, or majority of clubs at the moment, especially League One where we are in the Championship. I think the EFL will be fine, but you've got to safeguard your non-league clubs. Look at Jamie Vardy, a Premier League great now. He's come from non-league football. There's been plenty of footballers who have come from non-league football. So, they certainly need to invest and make sure the National League and lower is protected.
I agree with everything you're saying, but sadly, the whole point of the Premier League is to disagree, and they're going to be the ones who drive it. Sadly, I think.
The thing is, though, the Premier League will suffer because you look at it now. The Championship sides who are going up are struggling to cope with the quality.
Yeah.
We need stronger lower divisions for the Premier League to be the Premier League, but I suppose the Cartel Six or the Super Six or whatever you want to call them, or even the other sides in the Champions League and around them, they don't care about that. All they care about is them being the best, I suppose.
Exactly. So, or even they're distant in their own club's interests, and getting this will bring them a lot of money, and then having to cough up to the Football League, well, something they've already failed to do this year, and I can't see them doing it anytime soon. And on that happy note, should we finish?
Yeah.
Well,
Can I just really quickly I was involved in something to do with a club in my place of work in college today. It's probably not something I'm allowed to talk about too much, but just a shout out to the lads who came to the little focus group that were involved. Morgan, Michael, Ben, and Ben White. You both know Ben White. He was involved,
cool.
and Flea, who were fantastic. So cheers, lads, for coming to that. And once more is available publicly about that, I'll be able to talk a little bit about it. But yeah, it was great.
Looks like they're going to bring back chips for a quid, Chay.
That's it.
Excitement mounts. Well, I'm definitely going to stop it here because I think I've just scratched my nose. There's blood on my hands.
Pep Guardiola.
So I don't know what I've done 6 of, but I'm sure, I'll think of something. Right, let's Scarpa, chaps. It's always a pleasure catching up with you. And let's see what the next week brings. And then we'll bring it all to you again in capsule form on Final Whistle Weekly.